All right, we are back with another preview episode, this time the 2024 Black Canyon 100K, which is going to be an absolute barn burner. But before we get to that, we haven't talked on air since the Javelina 100. So starting with you, Leah, what is up in your world and what's on the horizon?
I went back to work, and that's pretty sad.
Ooh.
Yeah, just learning how to balance all of that stuff all over again. So lots of 7 p.m. running because I don't know how to be a morning person. So living that life, trying to train for a 6-day race in March and trying to get ready to compete against Brett at the Black Canyon 60K.
Oh, that's going to be such a good one. I'm so glad it's live streamed.
Who's taking that one? What are the odds makers saying right now?
Brett's got me good.
I don't know. We'll see. Leah, you tend to do better with like suboptimal lead ups to the race and then still having a good race. And us both being on course for the entire day, the day before our races, is actually probably going to benefit you way more than me.
I know it's I feel like I'm kind of used to that, but and I do.
I'm going to bring a chair.
I know. I've been thinking a lot about that. I was like, I need to be seated for all of the live stream.
Yep, we got our priorities straight.
Maybe the Jeff Colt strategy of standing all day will pay off, though. Who knows?
That's true.
What's up with you, Brett?
Oh, what's going on? Dude, Black Canyon 60K, like this is my Super Bowl. Coincidentally, it's on the day of the Super Bowl. So, yeah, ready to throw down there. Yeah, what else we got? Getting ready for fatherhood. It's gonna be a good one. So, no races other than Black Canyon 60K on the horizon for me as I prepare for my sabbatical.
Getting ready to raise a sub 220 marathoner, maybe.
It could happen. You know, that's totally their choice. I'm not going to push it on them.
Well, as we always do, I think it's important to kick off the preview with just notable observations, comments about what the course is looking like this year, any changes with aid stations, routing, stuff like that. Brett, what stands out to you in this department this year?
Well, there's two things. The first, I always love to talk about the weather, as you know, and, we're recording this, like 10 days out from the race or 9 days out from the race. So it's probably still kind of too far of an extended forecast, but we're looking at like 4 or 5 days of rain/showers and cooler temps leading up to the race, which is kind of unique. I mean, it's happened in a couple occasions, but those years, I think it was like 2017 and 2019.
Yeah.
Those also forced an alternate course because the water levels through the rivers were pretty high. The water levels through the rivers are pretty low this year. So it sounds like unless for some reason it rains a lot, they're still going to get to run the regular course, but it might just be cooler. And, I was texting Jamil, asking him like what the mud situation's like. And he said it oftentimes can get a little muddy with rain up on the top, third of the course higher up. But once you start to descend after like mile 15, 20, it gets a little more gravelly and a little more rocky, and that actually drains pretty well. So it doesn't really sound like it's going to be, like a slop fest or anything. So who knows? I mean, we might just see some fast times. So all those coming from, winter up in the mountains might luck out.
The last couple of years have been markedly different. It's been, sunshine, dry trails, hot course. If anyone out there wants to visualize what 24 could look like, there's a film. I'm not sure if it's on the Mountain Outpost or the Run Steep Get High channel, but it's covering the front of the race back in 2017, I think, when Eric Sensman and Alex Nichols and maybe it was Elop Olsen were battling it out for a golden ticket. And then I think Claire Gallagher on the women's side snagged one that year too. Claire's running in like total rain gear. It's sloppy. It's cold. You can see them shivering on a desert course. It's wild. So yeah, actually, and Leah, maybe I want to throw this to you. One of the questions that was posed, it was either on Twitter or Instagram. What happens to race tactics at Black Canyon if this weather holds? Like if you're in the shoes of some of the runners lining up on race day, how does this change things for you? How do you approach things differently?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the athletes prepare for this race to be hot and to be desert weather. Most of these athletes are coming from the Mountain West and they've been in the sauna. I think the sauna is always beneficial for training and for adaptations, regardless. But I think it changes mindset a lot. I think there's some people out there who might be banking on carnage a little bit more and banking on some people going out hot and suffering for it later. I do think conditions make it tough when it's sloppy like this. But perhaps there might not be as much carnage from heat after mile 50 like there typically is.
I got a question. Do you think, like for cooler weather, it almost forces everyone to race a little bit more aggressively? Because in the heat, there's always going to be a few that race aggressive, and you can kind of sit back, let them go. Oftentimes you're going to catch back up to them. In a cooler race like this, you're like, gosh, there's a much higher chance they don't ever come back. So then you're just kind of forced to go out with them.
I think so. Yeah.
Are we going to see a classic carnage race then this year if we get cooler weather, or are we just going to see again like people not dying and just everyone runs stupid fast?
I mean, I'm just thinking of there's just a lot of super fit people on this line, and for the sake of raising their heart rates and staying as warm as possible, faster running may be necessary just to survive out there in the morning hours.
I feel like we're really playing up this weather to be a lot gnarlier than it's probably going to be.
It's probably going to be really pleasant.
We got to build some drama. We got to sensationalize this.
I've been checking it every day, and the storm seems to be moving up. So now by like Sunday, it's actually looking sunny and very pleasant. So the 60K conditions are looking downright wonderful. But maybe the 100K might get that too if we check back in a few more days.
Is there a significant aid station change this year too, or crew access point?
Yeah, that was the other biggie. So one of the most pivotal crew access spots of the course had always been at Black Canyon City, which was mile 37. That is no longer a crew accessible aid station. The aid station's still there, but there won't be any crew allowed. And instead, the crewable spot is at the previous aid station, which is now called Deep Canyon Ranch, and it's in a slightly different spot than the like 50K-ish aid station last year. So now you will be able to crew your runner like mile 19, 32, and then 51. So between that second and third crew spot, it gains 6 miles. So I don't know, that seems kind of major to me, especially at the very front of the race. What do you think?
I think that sounds major, specifically for the people who don't have a lot of longer distance races. So I think that big difference could play in the hands of people who have raced 100K, raced 100 milers, are kind of used to having to go a while without aid, without crew. Maybe for some of these newbies to the distance, that could be a little damaging.
Yeah, because if you're not familiar with frantically actually grabbing things from the 2 aid stations that are in between your crew spot and you just skip things, we might see we always seen big blowups from Black Canyon City to Table Mesa, but we might see even bigger blowups now that it's from Deep Canyon to Table Mesa.
Totally.
One question I have is whether the weather impacts or influences the type of runner that is capable of winning this race. So if we do see a dramatic change from, sun, heat, dry trails over to the mud, cold, rain, wind, etc., does that open up opportunities for different types of runners, maybe like more strength-based runners, to have a great day here?
I'd say yes and no. I think when you look at history at Black Canyon, we've seen success across the board of all types of runners from all locations. So last year, for example, we saw Anthony Costales, Tom Evans, Cole Watson kind of be in that podium spots for the men, kind of reigning from different parts of the world. Same with the women, like Keely Henninger from Pacific Northwest, used to training in a lot of mud. Heather Jackson, not used to a ton of trail running at that time, but training in Bend and then Arizona. I think historically we might think of Black Canyon as a course that favors locals, favors people who often get to train in the desert. Maybe a little bit of weather like this will make it a bit more equalizer for some of our East Coast friends that are coming out for the race. I think especially on the men's side, we have a few coming from the East Coast who are training in some pretty rough winter conditions right now. So maybe they'll be used to some slop.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, Brett?
I mean, one of the most interesting things of this course, kind of regardless of the weather, I mean, we see this whether it's hot or cold, is how you have to be weirdly good at clicking off some pretty fast miles in the first half, but then you have to be like that like mountainous 100-miler grittiness in the second half. Because even though the whole course is runnable, and you know, those who are winning the races on the men's and women's side are probably running every single step, like so much of the climbing is in the second half of the race that you all of a sudden have to have like kind of hardened mountain legs to succeed. But if you're only good at that, you're gonna you know, leave too much time on the table in the first half. So you have to have this weird you know, combination of decent leg speed and then be able to like just be gritty at the end. I think one of the best examples of that was Keeley last year, and just the way that she ran the race and kind of displayed both of those skill sets really evenly, which kind of makes us such a nice litmus test for Western states.
This is probably not necessarily along the lines of like course and weather, but I think around the race itself, we're seeing what I think is a little bit more of an international presence of athletes this year. And I think a lot of that has to do with it becoming part of the World Trail Majors. I think it's the second race so far in the series, early season, which is kind of nice for those athletes who are targeting the majors, because perhaps they can target an early season one and maybe they can target something late in the season like Ultra Trail Cape Town. So I think for an entrance list that is, as of today, 1,011 entrants deep, like there's a lot of people in this race. So a lot of people that could then have the potential to be competitive in the World Trail Majors series at the end of the year.
That is a great point. I'll also be really curious to track the buy-in over the course of the rest of the year into this series. We should also talk about the live stream that's going to happen. I know both of you are a part of it on race day. Brett, what can you share that may or may not be new this year or rolled over from last year's presentation?
So yeah, we're still getting briefed on kind of all the final instructions, but sounds like as of right now, Leah and I will be leapfrogging each other on the course, doing course commentary. So I have to try and do my best Leah impression out there, which now that I'm like out of the comfort of the studio, I'm getting really nervous because being able to ID runners that quickly is definitely like a Leah superpower, because like I'm like, oh yeah, I can ID the runners, but like I get to watch them on drones and stuff coming in. Like I got a solid like 30 seconds to like stand there and think before they come in. So now I'm just getting thrown into the battlefield, and I'm excited to be out there and get to experience it. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And I think one of the biggest things for the live stream is that the whole studio is going to be right at the finish line this year. So, you know, hopefully that means for some more entertaining, like post race, just interviews with everyone being there and kind of hanging out. And, but yeah, it's going to be a good one. It's what Black Canyon live stream has not been awesome.
Yeah, I love that finish line studio. And I think one thing I'm excited to see built out even more is that like mixed zone style of content that you see in track and field, and maybe getting more interview content at the finish line, and the athletes get a chance to kind of sit down, maybe eat a piece of pizza, rehydrate, talk some more, reflect, and yeah, it'll be fun for the fans at home.
Lying in a cot, throwing up into a bucket. I'm just shoving a microphone in your face, making you tell me about all the carnage out there. Yeah, it's going to be good. Live from drug testing, it's Brett Hornig.
We got to do what we got to do when we're slinging tent out there.
Yeah.
Leah, any thoughts on this year's media coverage and what you're excited about?
Yeah, gosh, last year was awesome. It was chaotic. We were like hopping around to as many spots as we could possibly get to, and failing and flailing along the way. I feel like we worked out a lot of kinks throughout the day, and I'm really excited to like have some of my like stationary spots this year. So I'm going to be at, I think, the start, Hidden Treasure at mile right around the half marathon mark, Gloriana right around mile 24, and then Table Mesa at mile 50. Last year, I don't know if I'll be able to get to Table Mesa for the whole all the men coming through, but I remember last year Table Mesa was my absolute favorite spot to watch the women's race unfold because there's so much action happening, and I think we'll see something very similar this year. So if you're going to be out there spectating, Table Mesa is the place to be. And I just think it's such a pivotal part of the race, and just so much going on there.
Do you see that as one of the major cruxes of the race too? Like, were there a lot of lead or position changes there last year?
There was. Like, I'm just thinking specifically about the women's field because that's what I was largely involved with last year. And I'm pretty sure we saw Ida Nielsen come in. Maybe like it was like Heather Jackson and Keely come in kind of together, but maybe Ida was in that mix too. And then we had like Anna Cassius and Meg Morgan and Shay right behind Ida. And just, it was like when all that scooping up happened was right in that, 2 miles after Table Mesa. So you could just tell there was a lot that was about to happen, even through that aid station. I just remember like turning my back, somebody would come through. I'd be like, oh my God, it's another woman. And just doing that for like 10 minutes straight. So it was awesome. And I think we saw last year, Black Canyon's top 10 women were like the fastest they've ever been. Yeah. And that just made for like a really dynamic, especially like 3rd through 10th positions. Not much time split many of those women up.
I've got 3 categories of stats that I want to share from our friend and partner, Aid Station Fireball, who, by the way, if you're a listener or a viewer out there, go give him a follow on Twitter, donate to his Patreon because of these stats that we're about to recite and comment on. But there's 3 categories. I've kind of self-categorized them. The first one is around the evolution of this race, and friend of the podcast, Mike McMonigal, said something, I think, in an Instagram post shortly after last year's race, where he basically said, being out there, photographing the event, witnessing it firsthand, he felt like he saw a watershed moment of professionalism in the sport, just based on the performances, how the race was conducted, how things played out. And the stats kind of bear it out. Both fields, Leah, you were talking about the women's field there, both fields saw the fastest median finishing time for a top 10 finisher last year. And we've basically gotten to the point where if you want to be in golden ticket contention on the men's side, you have to expect to run sub 8 hours. On the women's side, sub 9:15. Of course, a lot of this stuff is weather, course conditions dependent, but that's the way it's been trending on a normal year in the past 3 to 4 years. When you hear sort of like these stats recited, Brett, what comes to mind for you?
I'm just looking at them right now as you were kind of talking over it, and I didn't realize how massive of a jump in just the average times in the top 10 on the women's side from any year to last year. Like the average top 10 got 40 minutes faster than the year before, which was right about equal to the previous, faster time. And, kind of going back to what we were saying earlier is you can't really bank on people blowing up anymore because there's, we all went through the start list and we're going to try our best at making a top 5 pick here, but on like both sides, there's probably 30 men and 30 women who are fit enough to be in the top 5. But then it really comes down to the factors outside of your fitness, like the actual race day decisions, like who is actually going to continue eating 100 grams of carbs an hour into the 7th, 8th, 9th hour of the race, who's gonna not push too hard on the climb out of Table Mesa or out of Black Canyon City. It's going to be like little tiny details that are going to make or break the race and determine the difference between like 1st or 8th place. And kind of what you said too, Finn, where it's like, or I guess what Mike said, where that just comes down to like the more professional you are in regards to your whole build up and the race, the more success you're probably going to have. Is the True Heart Brown era over? Where like
Seriously?
someone comes in and just like goes out hard, people let them go, stays off the front, like we're holding like he's holding a plastic handheld. Like
Yeah.
he did it old school. Will we see that anymore?
I mean, we're seeing this we're hearing this, I should say, from the athletes themselves. Like we had Zach Miller on the show a few weeks ago, and we were kind of reminiscing on the 2017 UTMB. And like one of the first things Zach said was, that version of me, I don't even recognize anymore. That's like such an inferior version of myself. The sport was so different back then. Like you could barely crack 22 hours at that race and either be on the podium or win. And like, not only should we question, like, is the True Heart Brown era over, but like, is the current version of professional athletes in the sport vastly different than even the version that existed like 3 or 4 years ago in 2019, let alone, the random ballers and stuff like that. Leah, what do you think?
I mean, I think we had this discussion before we hit record, and I'm going to echo it right now. Like, this entrance list is the deepest for, I think, a domestic race that we've covered ever. Like, I actually think this is deeper than some of the Western States competitors that we've seen over the years. Maybe not the top end talent, but maybe also kind of the top end talent as well, but definitely deep. I mentioned there's a little bit of international competition coming to this race, but from like a North American perspective, I can't get over just the athletes and how they're training these days.
Yeah.
So just going through and like, let's say for the women's field, for example, I feel like even this time last year, it was pretty easy to separate what we would consider like world class or national class apart from, this other class of like sub elite, maybe about to like make their big break. The women's training that I'm seeing, everybody is doing extremely, extremely great training for these races. So it's so hard to kind of pick and choose who's going to be the fittest on race day because everybody's just putting a great effort out there. And I think it's going to get harder and harder to predict, who's going to come away with a podium spot from these races.
I joked on Instagram earlier today that we need to hire an oceanographer because the depth is so deep. Like we're talking like Marianas Trench levels of depth here at Black Canyon, unseen before. There is no precedent. This is insane.
Somebody needs to take your Instagram away from you.
I'm glad that we now finally have like an image that we can put with the depth is deep quote of maybe just like a profile line of the Marianas Trench, like the Titanic sinking down it with it saying like the depth is deep on it. Oh, Eric Lupuma, I know you're not going to listen to this before the race, but maybe if you listen to it for some reason after the race, can you please mock us up a logo of that? Thank you.
All right. The next category of stats is whether or not Black Canyon is a reliable predictor of relative success at Western. 2 stats here. Black Canyon has given golden tickets to 5 people who went on to podium at Western, which is the most of any golden ticket race since 2016. That list include Anthony Costales, Amy Sproston, Tyler Green, Casey Lichtig, Alex Nichols. And then of all the golden ticket winners at this race since 2016, 81% have gone on to finish no lower than 13th place in their follow-up Western. So really solid consistency. No outright winners directly from this race, but amazing consistency and high-level performance. Does that surprise you guys at all?
I think something that was interesting when I was glancing at those two was 2 stats. Like I felt like there was a difference between men and women performances at Western States from Black Canyon. I almost felt like the men seemed to have better Western States performances than the women did who were golden ticket winners from here. I don't know why that would be, but that was like a pretty interesting stat that I saw. But I will say, correlating any success at Black Canyon to Western States, I think it makes sense. Black Canyon starts out with a 20-mile slight downhill. And then you have to get pretty gritty for the last 40 miles on these like punchy, rolling, gravelly, rocky terrain, and you kind of have to go from your runnable legs into your more just like resilient mountain legs to some degree. I know it's not truly mountain running, but they're hills. And I think Western States is kind of similar. You start with kind of, it's almost the opposite, but I think that type of runner, you need to show both skill sets at Black Canyon, and you also need to show both skill sets at Western States. So I'm not really surprised that these runners have had success. I also think the timing of the season is extremely nice. Like February to June, it kind of sets you up really well.
Yeah, you actually have time to put in, like you get to fully peak a race, Black Canyon, rest, full build for Western States, where, you know, we've seen people have success after, you know, Lake Sonoma, Canyons, 100K. But it's definitely a luxury to have the time to dedicate towards like more Western States specific training. Yep. Another variable, Leah, that I think helps with like that Black Canyon has, that Western States also has, is in most years is the heat element as well.
Totally.
Whereas, you know, if you're able to, you know, race well, and, you know, 70 degrees isn't as hot as Western States, but 70 degrees in February is pretty hot feeling. So when you're able to manage that, that's just another thing. It's like, okay, you check that box for Western States.
Something that also came to mind, kind of unrelated to this Western States success, but it's kind of related to Western States, is I talked about the 1,011 entrants that we're seeing this year. I think something that's adding to the competition at Black Canyon this year is the fact that Bandera 100K was not a golden ticket race this year. So we used to get kind of the splitting of competition. Black Canyon, I mean, Bandera was historically a little less competitive than Black Canyon for the last couple of years. But like it would take away some competition. This year, the only things that would have taken away competition in golden ticket races in theory was like Javelina back in October. So I think we're seeing a lot of these like athletes who are training through the winter. This is the race that they're choosing.
That's a great point. I mean, as late as 2019, there were 5 golden ticket races in succession. You know, Bandera, Black Canyon, Georgia Death Race, Lake Sonoma, Canyons. So yeah, the consolidation here as a result of just stuff spread out through the year. That's a great point. Last stat line here is just talking about the general competitiveness of the race and how much you have to be in it, like really from start to finish, which we've talked about almost ad nauseum in our last like 3 to 4 preview episodes. But holy shit, this race is toit like a toiger, as Goldmember would say. The men's race has had the podium separated by less than 10 minutes in 3 of the last 4 years. And on the women's side, it's been separated by less than 10 minutes in 2 of the last 4. That's wild to me. Like there's a chance that, you know, 2 Saturdays from now, a Saturday from now, we're seeing like, you know, true racing in the last 5 to 10K of this race among podium and golden ticket contenders. That probably doesn't, but what do you guys think about that? Does it surprise you?
I mean, that's the way ultra running is going. I mean, we saw it last year with how long it took to figure out who was going to win the race. You know, on the women's side, it took 50 miles to, you know, for like the eventual leader to finally take the lead for good. You know, on the men's side, and, you know, Cole tried to break the field around the 50K mark. And, you know, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, that's the move that wins the race. But you had Anthony and Tom like, oh, no, that's too early. Like, we're already going fast enough. That's too early. And then the move didn't get made until after Black Canyon City, somewhere in the 40s, where, you know, then Cole wasn't able to respond to that move. And then even then, it was still like not sure if Anthony had fully broken Tom until, again, like the final 10 miles. So, yeah, I mean, kind of going back to your stat, and I was looking at some of the historical splits too, where it was like, how fast were people through Bumblebee, through, you know, like Gloriana? And it was, you know, like 10 men all came in and left together. Like 10 women all came in and left together. It the races are packing up for at least the first half, probably even longer now. And then it's going to be as of right now, it's who doesn't slow down. I don't think you need to make an aggressive move to win the race yet. And, it's still going to be like Anthony died the least last year. Maybe in 5 more years, it won't be like that, where it's like, who can then all of a sudden run their last 10K a handful of minutes faster than the 10K before that. We're not seeing that yet, but I bet we're getting closer. And and maybe that might then bring out like a whole new different type of runner, a different skill set to what it takes to win this race.
I am almost positive that at some point early on in the live stream, between the start and Bumblebee, we're going to see frequent drone pans to like a 20-person horde of runners reliably staying in a pack. How long does some version of that pack stay together? And what will be the largest pack that we see late in the race, relatively speaking, maybe spread out by hundreds of feet? I'm really curious to see.
I just recall last year at Bumblebee, at Gloriana, and that was 20, mile 24. 20 men early on. I just remember trying to like spit off every single name running past, and you don't know who they are. They're all jumbled together, like huge packs, at least through mile 20. Like we're going to see 30 people still together for men's race, probably 20 on the women's side. Table Mesa, mile 50. Oh no, Black Canyon City, which we're not going to have this year, but that's around the mile 35 mark or so usually. That last year we were seeing like within 5 minutes a good 10 men last year, I think. But I think that's where it truly starts breaking apart, is that mile 36 or so, 35.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because as runners were leaving Black Canyon City last year, there was a split where it was like Cole, Anthony, and Tom, and then there was maybe like 2 minutes, and then it was like 4th through 15th place were all still together trying to reel them in, and Cole got mixed up in the shuffle of that before he came back to life, but then Tom and Anthony were the only ones that ended up staying away. I could totally, as we get into like the preview of the fields, I could totally see a similar scenario with that, with a handful of names on this list.
Yep.
Yeah, I think why we see that breaking point there typically too is the first 20 miles it's so easy. Like it's slightly downhill. You are just, gravity's taking you. You are not putting out any effort. Around the 20-mile mark is when you start to do a little bit of climbing. And then right around the 50K mark, before you then come down to Black Canyon City, that's where you start to do a significant amount of climbing compared to the rest of the course. So I think that transition from all downhill to like, okay, now you need to actually start using your legs, kind of shocks a lot of the runners. And that's where we start to see some of the braking happen.
Should we get into the women's field?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm ready.
I have so many questions, but I think maybe just to start, Leah, when we say this field is deep, like how many women approximately do you believe are in contention for, let's say, one of the 3 golden tickets?
I have 25 listed.
Oh my God.
And I think I calculated a roughly 12 to 13 of those are coached by Megan and David Roach, which is really fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
They're
to
probably
play
celebrating no matter what on a Saturday.
I think they're going to be out there too, which will be fun.
Yeah, the Strava stalking, playing the game of are they a swap athlete, was kind of fun. I have like lots of question marks written next to a lot of names on my notes here, which is, I have 6 pages of like runner notes, and I think that's a record for pre-race notes that I've ever taken. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, I know we'll probably talk about like how we categorized our runners and things like that. Yeah. But I think I didn't do this for the men's field, but maybe one of you guys did. But something I thought was interesting to look at was the number of women in this field who have either earned a golden ticket in the past or missed it by 2 or less spots. And
that's a good
my
one.
top 25 women that I pulled out, there's 10 women who have
Wow.
kind of been in that golden ticket contention in about the last like 5 years or so.
That is a big number. Like, and even like, okay, I'm on that list. Like, do you have Allison Baca on that list?
No.
Because I don't think she ever got a golden ticket, but
Mm-mm.
she's been pretty competitive at Western States.
Yeah, and like Kat Bradley too. Kat Bradley
Yep.
Yeah.
won Western States but never won a golden ticket. Both Allison and Kat got into Western States off the lottery.
Yeah. So there's like, even amongst how giant that list is of people who've been in golden ticket contention or gotten golden tickets, there's still like heavy hitters not on that particular list.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like I think even potentially like heavier hitters who aren't even on this list.
Yes, 100%.
I would love to know the average amount of attempts it takes for any given runner who is trying to get a golden ticket to actually secure one. Like, is it 2? Is it 3? Is it 1? I have no idea.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that might be a future Aviation Fireball stat. It wouldn't, I mean, I know we definitely see some people who play the long game and like get better over the course of 5 or 6 years, but like in the marathon world, is some like 90+% of elite marathoners set their lifetime PR within their first 3 marathons.
Wow.
Because you kind of figure out about how good you're going to be. And then like the wear and tear of training for it, really adds up. You have your few exceptions, but I wonder if we're going to see some people who like, if you don't hit a golden ticket within your first like 3 races, assuming one of them actually goes well, like, will you be able to make that jump and improvement to be in that spot? I know it's kind of a somewhat demoralizing way to phrase that, but I'm just curious if we're getting to that point where it's like, yeah, I mean, you could qualify for the trials and run 2:17 for the marathon, but like you're never going to make the Olympic team because chances are that person that trained their ass off to run 2:17 is not going to run 2:07.
To know your fate already is interesting.
Yeah. Like when Jim ran like 14:08 at Western States, I was like, oh, he killed Western States. It's not fun anymore.
Leah, what are your categories?
I've got a lot of categories this time, and there's a lot of people who fall into a lot of buckets. So
the overlapping Venn diagram.
Yes, these categories aren't my best, but I feel like they get the point across. My number 1 category says VVV fast / has run 100 miler. So these are the people. These are the people.
What?
So extremely fast. So these are kind of like the women who have shown themselves at like faster 100 milers and or run fast marathons and have succeeded at 100 milers. Then there's also the VVV fast hasn't finished 100 milers. So these are like our extreme road marathon speedy people who might be successful in more of like the 50K realm of the sport, but are just finally tipping over into the 100K realm. And then I have our very, very fast and consistent runners who like might not be that like top end marathon speed, but are consistently competing at the highest level and doing it well over the years.
Okay.
So a couple of the people that fill those categories. So where should I start? Let's talk about our, I think, very, very, very fast and have run 100 milers. Allison Baca.
100 mile.
Yeah. Allison Baca, Heather Jackson, and Kat Drew. So Allison Baca, man, she excites me because she can do so much in the sport. She's got extreme leg speed. She's just recently coming off a 2:42 CIM, where I believe she was trying to go for the standard and fell a little bit short. And we also saw her 6th place at the World Mountain Trail Running Championships this year, I think being the top USA woman in that race. Extremely talented. And I love to see her put it all together in races this last year. And I think Black Canyon will really suit her strengths. We mentioned that she did run Western States a couple years ago, 2022. I think she was just outside the top 10, running around 21 hours and change. I think 50 mile to 100K is her sweet spot. And I'm really excited to see her here.
Wow. I didn't know she was that fast.
She's so fast. Cool. Yeah, she comes from a prior, I think, triathlon background as well.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah. Heather Jackson, I think we know Heather Jackson well at this point. She is the only woman in this field who's already into Western States in like our more competitive field, I would say.
Yep.
So Heather was second here last year, only by 2 minutes. Ran a great race, and we just saw her just blow Javelina out of the water this fall, running extremely aggressive. So I'm really excited to see how she attacks Black Canyon, because I think if she does it similarly to how she ran Javelina, we are in for a show.
Do you think she will? Because this is kind of a no pressure race for her.
I think she is going to go for it. And if to remind the listeners of how Heather ran Javelina, she went out at men's course record pace for the first 100K. And was doing it well, and was running around like fifth or sixth place overall for much of that first 100K, and held on extremely well, running, I think, 14:30 or so.
Microfade. Yeah.
It was really, really impressive. That style of racing scares the crap out of me. I will probably never race that way, but I love watching Heather do it because she's so good at just staying gritty whenever it starts hurting really bad.
Eric LaPuma, if you're ever listening, please make a logo for Microfade as well.
Yeah, you can take that however you want.
My last person in this VV Fast has run a 100-miler category is Kat Drew. I'm really excited to see her here. So she took pretty much all of 2023 off from anything that had 100 in the name, is how she wrote it. So she was kind of burnt out by the 100K, 100-mile distance, and went back to 50K and like road running a good bit just to kind of stoke her fire a little bit more. And she's really, really good at the 50K distance. We saw her battle it out with Claire Gallagher at Chuckanut last year. I think she was just behind Claire in that race. And then she threw down a 3:24 50K at Calgary Marathon in 50K last year. And that is like 6:30-ish pace, I believe. One of the fastest 50Ks in North America last year by a woman. So I think taking that year kind of off from the longer distance probably did her pretty well. And I think she's probably energized coming into this. I do believe she's had a Black Canyon attempt and perhaps finish before. I think this course suits her well. I think having the leg speed and then having course experience. She's also gotten a golden ticket at Canyons 100K and raced her way into Western States for a top 10 finish before. So I'm curious if she wants to get back to Western States once more.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think about with Heather Jackson, this is year 2 of her trail running experiment. And like another stat, again, like calling to the heavens, calling to Liam Aviation Fireball, like what is the common trajectory to hitting your peak in the sport from a year-over-year standpoint? Like Brett, like you were saying earlier with the marathon, like on your third attempt, you kind of figure out the zone of your peak in the sport or at that distance. How many years in the sport does it take to really flesh out like what your identity is, how good you can be, stuff like that?
Well, one thing that's really cool that we're seeing about the sport with advancements in training science and especially nutrition is that people are maintaining their peak racing years longer. You know, it used to be, again, going back to the great Ryan Gelfie, he was like, you get 3 years to be good at the sport because 90% of ultra runners are absolutely torched after 3 years. And when you look at 2016 prior, and you look at people who are winning races, he was for the most part right, you know, and then there was a small handful of people that continued to run well beyond 3 years. We're seeing that less now, where we're seeing people be good year after year after year. It's like, you know, like I totally thought Walmsley was going to be burnt out after like 2 or 3 years, but I think he's adopted enough of the kind of new age training science. You know, we're seeing, like you had said too, the reinventing of Zach Miller. That's prolonging his career, not only just to be able to do it, but be able to do it at the very highest level. So, you know, for someone like Heather, like she might have another decade in this sport.
Leah, in your opinion, if you had to predict on race day, how many runners in this women's field are capable of breaking 9 hours?
Oh, Like,
Because only 7 have done it in history.
I think 15 in this field could.
Wow.
I do. I don't think 15 are going to do it, but I think there's 15 women in this field on a good weather day that could, especially if they brought just the most out of each other. What I do really like about this field, and I'll touch on it in my next category, is just like the style of racers we have too. I love seeing like Rachel Drake and Emkay Sullivan in this field. I think they've competed in really, really competitive 50Ks and like short distance mountain runs. Same with Rachel Tomachak, this will be her first 100K and probably one of her first ultra distances as well. I think she's only run maybe 1 or 2 ultra marathons, but these women know how to race and race like hard for the entirety of a race. So I'm curious, whenever you're lining up this many women with that competitive fire, how hard they'll push each other and what they can get out of the others.
What do you got for another category?
Let me just dive into that category. So those were like my top end speedsters who haven't run a 100-miler. Not saying you need to run a 100-miler. I just needed a way to separate these categories, quite frankly. So in this category, and Brett, maybe you can dive into her a little bit because I feel like you've got some specialized knowledge, is Marcy Klimek. Is that how you say it?
Ooh,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Marcy's going to be a fun one to watch out there because I think she's got the fastest marathon PR of the field, and it's not. I mean, it was just from a couple years ago, and it's 2:30 flat. You know, like 2:30. That's like well under the trials mark. But anyway, Marcy's dabbled in trail stuff, just on and off. She's a Southern Oregon local, living actually out in Montana at the moment, but dabbled in trail mostly just to kind of break up the road racing. But then last year decided to go more all in on trail and just first true like training and racing of a trail race was the Waldo 100K, where she then won it outright in a course record. And Waldo 100K isn't as competitive as it once was, but if anyone goes back and looks at the like top 10 list, it's a who's who of ultra running royalty from the Waldo 100. And and I talked to her after the race, and she was like, oh, it was miserable. There was like so many things I did wrong, and et cetera, et cetera. So this one, like, clearly the talent is there, the fitness is going to be there, but the biggest difference between Waldo and Black Canyon is there are so many more distractions at Black Canyon, with competition for one, and just the chaos of the aid stations, crewing, like actually having, like, Marcy didn't have to be fast through any of the aid stations at Waldo. You have to be fast through the aid stations here at Black Canyon. So, there's going to be some question marks there, but she might be fit enough to, be able to make a few of those little mistakes. She can't do anything major, but, definitely on your very, very fast, but hasn't run 100-mile yet list. That's definitely a good one. Someone to watch out for.
I got to add to that because we have a very interesting person alert here too. I went to her bio page on the Cascadia Elite Team website. Her current obsessions include the James Webb Telescope, which is like an upgraded version of the Hubble telescope, a family of hummingbirds that share her front porch, and learning to play the fiddle. That's amazing.
I didn't know any of those things. I only talked to Marcy about running.
So very interesting person alert too, not just a great runner.
She's multi-dimensional.
Cool.
Yeah, I wanted to add too, Waldo is a 22-year-old race. So like you said, that's a who's who of like the 2010s largely, but like that race has been around for a minute. So breaking a course record there and then beating all the men, that's pretty cool. And on an imperfect day. Oh, I love it.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. So then I also had Rachel Drake in that category. If anybody followed Rachel Drake's CIM this year, it was extremely impressive.
Textbook,
beautiful. Her and Peyton Thomas ran, I'm pretty sure, the entire race together and just put together a beautiful 2:35, qualifying for the Olympic marathon trials. And she's foregoing her spot in the trials to run Black Canyon, which I think just speaks to her love for the trail running world and speaks to like what she's really after, which is a great race here at Black Canyon.
Great vote for our sport.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, Rachel's just had a phenomenal year. She kind of focused a little bit more on the shorter stuff this summer going into OCC, and then put herself in the mix at OCC and did it extraordinarily well with a 6th place finish. Had like a rough return to running postpartum earlier in the season, but then just came back stronger than ever. She's like not somebody that you're going to see do extraordinarily high mileage, but what she does works really, really well for her. She's run 100K before, I believe it was the 2019 CCC where she was in the top 10 there. So she has experience. She's done 100K. It's been a minute. So if anything, like I think that could be one question mark for me, but I think having such household experience with the longer distance and then having like the grit and resilience at the shorter 50K and other mountain races she's done, I think will bode extremely well for her.
I'm so happy that Rachel is back to like peak running form, because I feel like there was a whole crop of trail fans that came about post COVID, and Rachel ran really well on the Golden Trail final, I think in 2020. But then like pregnant, postpartum, you know, that took out a chunk of race time, and a lot of people didn't know who Rachel Drake was. And it was like, oh, I can't wait for all these people to learn who Rachel is. And then now that she's back doing Rachel things, everyone's like, who is this person? I was like, oh no, Rachel's like the OG. So excited that she's running Black Canyon and what I assume is a golden ticket attempt.
I believe so. And I think coming off a recent short course race in Hong Kong, that was still, you know, a 3-hour something race. I think that was a great like training effort and great proof of her fitness coming into this. I think she was definitely in the top 5 overall, maybe like 4th overall there, breaking a course record and beating all the women in the field by like 20 plus minutes in, I forget, about 20-mile race.
One thing, she's crewed and paced Tyler. Did Tyler win this race or second?
Got second to Sense.
I think he won back in 2021. I think he had a pretty tactical run too, because I think he was in 3rd place at Black Canyon City and then took the lead and won. It was one of those really interesting come from behind years.
Rachel paced him for the last section. So Rachel at least has like the neurons connected of running very fast the last 10 miles. Yeah. And Rachel, that's a good thing to have.
Yes.
She also proceeded to run the 60K the next day and crush me. So she knows the first 35 miles very well too. So I think she actually has probably seen roughly the entire course, which I think is helpful for a race like Black Canyon too.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me just go through these. Then, like I mentioned, Emkay Sullivan, another top 10 at the World Trail and Mountain Running Championships in the 40K this year. I think that race was probably her best race to date, but also has been super competitive in the Golden Trail Series the last couple years. We'll be stepping it up in distance as well. I believe she was going to run CIM too, but forewent that just to like recover a little bit more this winter and dive a bit more into this training. A couple other names in this category: Kat Short and Sarah Beal, both very fast. Sarah Beal, I think, has a sub 240 marathon to her name, JFK course record, has had several golden ticket race attempts now, her closest being a 5th place at Canyons 100K back in 2022. And then had a rough go last year at a few golden ticket attempts. So hopefully for her to put it together here at this race.
There's a lot of cats in the race this year. There's 3.
Yeah.
Wow. Huh.
That's all.
And then you want me to dive into my last category here?
Sure.
Yeah.
I just like consistent performers who are always at the top end, which Lucy Bartholomew, Anne-Marie Madden, Shea Aquilano, Lauren Puritz, Arden Young, Becca Wendell, Anna McKenna, and Riley Brady. Lucy Bartholomew, like no stranger to any of us, has gotten 3rd at Western States. I know really wants to get back to Western States. Transitioned, I think, from being coached by David Roach this past summer to being coached by Jason Koop. And that transition happened right before UTMB, I believe. And she did her UTMB Kona double, which was pretty cool to follow. Got 10th place at UTMB, and I think has since been training very specifically for Black Canyon, and I believe has been in Arizona now for probably at least the last 2 weeks. So I think she'll be solid. Her training's been very specific, pretty like
It's looked really good.
Yeah.
miles. Yeah.
One of my first introductions to the sport was back in 2018. I was at Western State's training camp, had the chance to meet her, great person. And then she put on a really interesting clinic type race at Western that year. I mean, was leading the race for a while, kind of micro faded to third, but really exciting. I hope she gets back into Western too.
I think it'd be awesome. And I feel like she is somebody who, like, even if she doesn't have her day at Black Canyon, I think we'll see her at Canyons, because I think that is her goal this year.
Yep.
Let
cool.
me see here. Yeah. And I think on that list, Anne-Marie Madden is a fun one. She just, she won the Masters division at CIM this year, running 2:44. And she's, I believe, 42 or 43 years old and has gotten a golden ticket at Black Canyon once before. And yeah, I think she's solid. She just has such a history in the sport, way back to like some podium finishes at the North Face 50 miler in California. So I love to see her on start lines, because I think every time we see her race, she just is consistent, works her way up, knows what she's doing, and is just a complete expert.
That the golden ticket year where she got that ticket, I think it was 2022. It was the year that Dominika Stelmach blew up. Claire won. I think Anne-Marie was maybe 20, 25 minutes back at Black Canyon City, and she was one of the outliers in that whole kind of stat we were talking about, where she was that far back, but kind of ran textbook in the last half of the race to get into podium, golden ticket position. Really impressive.
Dang. Yeah, she's part of the Canadian contingent that we're going to see at Black Canyon. For whatever reason, maybe they just want to escape their brutal winters up there, but Black Canyon always does a good job of attracting our Canadian friends. So on the women's side, that's going to be Kat Short. She's Canadian but lives in Hawaii. Kat Drew, Anne-Marie Madden, Arden Young, and Genevieve Asselin Demers. So 5 of them, pretty solid.
We're just missing Ailsa McDonald. I feel like she should be there.
Dang, yeah, you're right.
Should we go into picks here?
Yeah, anybody else that you guys want to add that didn't really dive deep into?
Is Tara Dower racing?
Oh, I believe she is, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because she was 12th last year, I think.
Yep.
12th last year amongst, I've got I think 5 returners from the top 15. Heather Jackson, second, Anna Cassius fourth. Oh, Anna Cassius is not running this year though. Shea Aquilano, 6th. And then Nicole Hansen was 13th. So still definitely got a handful. And then there was a whole bunch from 2022 who raced and are coming back. So a lot of people who have logged some solid miles on this course.
Yeah, and I think somebody like Shea, I think she was only a minute or so behind. She was in 6th place. I think a minute or so behind Ida, who was in 5th place, and not far behind Anna last year. I think with the experience she's gained this last year, definitely has some opportunity to make up some time on her splits from last year. And she put in a typical little Shea training weekend too, with a 22, 20, 10, 10, 13, all in a 3-day period.
You know who Shea Aquilano's training kind of reminds me of is Casey Lichtags.
Yeah.
Is it's a lot of it's pretty quick, pretty consistently quick, pretty high mileage, and very flat. But then for some reason that just equals running well on trails. So well, yeah.
What did we call that John Ray training strategy where he did the 6 runs in a 48-hour span, separated by 8 to 10 hours each?
Questionable.
I don't know. There was some training theory-esque title for it. Cluster. It was cluster. It was cluster runs. Cluster runs.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Cluster runs. I haven't seen. I mean, it was so hard to dive through everyone's Strava, because and then I went through so many, and then I kind of concluded you're right. No, everyone's training really well.
Yeah,
it's really going to come down to making, who can make the least amount of mistakes. But I don't think I saw any cluster runs. I wasn't looking too specifically though. Who's picking first?
I'll go first, and
Ben's going first.
If I'm inspired enough, I'm going to try to add in a jingle. Like if anyone here in the audience watches the ESPN NFL draft, whenever they make a pick, it has this jingle. It's like din 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 din. If you're an NFL fan, you'll get it. So I'll add a jingle to each of these picks. But I
thought you were gonna do like the best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I actually have Folgers today. It was great. All right, so I actually went 6 deep. I know we said we're going to go 5 deep. I went 6 deep. I've got Heather Jackson winning the race, Rachel Drake in second, Emkay Sullivan in third, Riley Brady fourth, Kat Short fifth, Allison Baca sixth. The reason I went 6 deep is I think this is going to be a 2-part race. I think there's going to be a fierce battle at the front between Heather Jackson, Rachel Drake, and Emkay Sullivan. But I think they're all going to hold it together. And then I think there's going to be a pack not far behind them, which is Riley Brady, Kat Short, and Allison Baca. Because some of these people have tickets already, my golden ticket winners are Rachel Drake, Emkay Sullivan, and Riley Brady. They're heading back to Western. So,
we should add golden tickets are rolling down to 6 at Black Canyon, according to Craig Thornley on Twitter. So in the past, golden tickets always roll down to 5 because they're giving 3 here. We will see rolling down to 6, which is exciting. So that gives some opportunity for people turning them down or people already being into Western states.
And Black Canyon is paying for your Western states entry fee to the golden ticket winners. So
it's expensive. It's about $500.
So here's a question. If you're in that spot and you turn down the golden ticket, you can't just accept a check for $500?
That'd be nice. Probably not.
What if you had a choice? Who would choose that? $500 or an entrant or the opportunity to run Western States? That's classic Jared Hazen putting his belt buckle on eBay type scenario right there.
Yeah. Finn, I wanted to add, I don't know if you remember Bandera 2023, but Kat Short went out with Courtney Dauwalter and stuck with Courtney Dauwalter for a while. So I think Kat will be somebody we see in that lead pack early on.
That's a great point. That's good memory.
Yeah.
Great point. I think this women's race, it could be a very aggressive year. And I like that dynamic. I like the fact that there could be people really laying it out on the line early, battling, not wanting to give up position. And just being I love that. I love seeing that type of racing. And I guess my one prediction that I want to hold to, and I'll be curious to see if it plays out, is I think that of the people that I expect to go out hard, I don't expect as much attrition as we would normally see. One of the questions on Instagram, which could be funny to debate, is will this be the most DNF'd race in the history of American ultra trail running because of how deep it is and how that environment can lead to questionable decision making? Maybe, but of my picks, I see these people kind of holding it together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. And I feel like one of the most DNF'd races in American ultra running history is probably Barkley. Or Big's Backyard Ultra. So
Brett, let's
checkmate. All right. So I do not have the same picks as Finn, which I had a feeling we've done prediction show or preview shows in the past where a lot of our picks have been pretty similar, and I would have been pretty shocked if we had super similar picks across these ones. So I've got Rachel Drake taking the win, and accepting the golden ticket, edging out Heather Jackson, who's already in Western States. I've got Allison Baca for third, taking a golden ticket, and then I've got dark horse random baller Marcy Klimek hanging on for fourth, also taking that golden ticket. Fifth, I've got Riley Brady, and then bonus 6th place, Shea Aquilano.
Ours are similar.
And I had so in Marcy's case for 4th place, I had about 4 or 5 other women that were in this similar, you had your Rachel to my check, Emkay Sullivan kind of who's going to be able to still go out pretty hard, but then have the legs last 50K. And it was a biased coin flip for that spot. So, because Finn, like you said, I think we're going to see a decent amount more aggression of racing in the front, but then just due to the level of talent in this field, we're just not going to see as much blowing up. So we'll see some micro fades. You know, I'm not saying like anyone that I left outside of my top 6 is like going to DNF. I mean, they're probably right there in 7th. But I'm interested now to hear your picks, Leah.
Okay. I'll go backwards. I got Marcy Klimek in 5th. Yeah. And then I got Riley Brady in 4th. I got Allison Baca in 3rd. Rachel Drake in 2nd. Heather Jackson in 1st. Heather and Rachel both breaking the course record.
Wow.
And I think they're going to run like 10 minutes under the course record. And I think that's going to be a very close race between the two. I think Heather will have a bigger gap early on. I think Rachel's going to close that quite a bit.
Yeah. To add to that, because I like that. In my entire top 5 goes sub 9. I'm not going to say course records, but I'm saying the whole top 5 goes sub 9.
I think they go sub 902.
That was like a Price is Right type counter right there. You're like, oh yeah, well I bet the top 5 goes sub 903. The price is wrong. Okay, so it's Heather or Rachel.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean,
so yeah, with those lineups, like we said, that means tickets would roll down to number 4 because we all had Heather Jackson in our top 5 there. So that would be cool. I would love to see Riley get another ticket to Western States. They missed out by 1 spot at Javelina behind Heather and Ragna DeBots. And then I know didn't quite have the Western States to have the summer. So would love to see them get back there.
I think it's becoming increasingly easier to do with social media, but one thing that I start to factor in is what is the overall chemistry of these fields and how do each of the runners relate to each other, what's going on in their lives, where are they at in their career, and how does all of that contribute to the dynamics of the race. And I just love the chemistry in this field, and I'm very excited to see, because like Rachel Drake has talked in the past about how she collaborates with her competition to get the best out of herself. And I think there's going to be a lot of collaboration that goes on race day to help get those course records that you described. I think it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, that's what I saw a lot in that like 3rd through 5th place last year was like they were working together. Granted, they were racing each other, but like Meg Morgan, Shay, Anna, Ida, like they were kind of fighting each other, but working with each other. And it was really, really cool to see.
That's what I love about golden ticket races is like, yes, winning the race is, you know, you're still the champion, you're first, but like if you get that 2nd or that 3rd golden ticket, like you're kind of winning the race as well. So,
totally.
And who knows, maybe Rachel is going to be channeling some of this, you know, not being at the Olympic trials for the marathon. She's like, this is her Olympic trials, like top 3 get to go to the Olympics, which is Western States. And she's got a legit chance to be on that team.
All right. Men's field, talking depth, category, storylines, predictions. Brett, kick us off here. Where do you want to start?
There's a lot of returners, few more on the men's side than the women's side. So I'm just going to roll through kind of the upper few returners. So we've got Cole Watson coming back, who was 4th. Noah Dussault, who was 5th, David Laney, who was 7th, Elliot Carden, who was 8th, Stephen Kirsch, who was 9th, Matt Seidel, who was 10th, Dan Green, who was 12th, Ryan Miller, who was 13th. Those are just all people who are like just coming back who want to improve upon that. Like if you just take those people and they have the races that they had last year, there's not that much room to include new people. So it's, you know, and it definitely, I mean, it won't play out like that, but and then there's also people who have had success in like previous years of this race. The big one is Hayden Hawks. He won Black Canyon in 2020. And if you haven't listened to the Singletrack podcast Black Canyon interview with Hayden Hawks, give that a listen. That was great. I love how transparent Hayden is with his training and like his comeback from surgery, and just being very like vocal about how many stones he has turned over. For like, you know, he's like, oh yeah, I flew to the UK and was in an altitude chamber that had the heat cranked up, and I ran virtually every section of the Western States course to figure out exactly how much fluid and carbohydrates I need on every section. And then I've been practicing that. Yeah. I'm like, what? You had to fly to the UK to do that? Yeah. But like, dang, like that is super impressive. How should I go through my categories? Like I have four categories. I don't think I'll go through every single name on all of them, but I had current heavy hitters. So those are, you know, those who have like recently banged out like one or more like massively good races. Actually more than one. Like I feel like you're a heavy hitter if you at least have two of them. Because then we know you're not just like a flash in the pan. So I had current heavy hitters. I was once a heavy hitter, but might still have it in them.
I like that.
You know, like an example of that, like I've got David Daney, Tim Tollefson, Mark Hammond, Jared Hazen, Stephen Kirsch. I have all of like was once a heavy hitter and might still have a heavy hitter type performance or year in them. Because they all have been like right at the top of the stage. You know, we're talking like podiums at Western States. Jared has the second fastest all-time time at Western States, multiple golden tickets. Mark Hammond's been on the podium multiple times. You know, David and Tim have both podiumed at UTMB. Kirsch has had some pretty good international races. He's also had like a 7th at Western States. He was just 9th last year. I've got the little note next to him, home field advantage. He gets to spend some time out on the course. And then I've got a list of like our heavy hitter potentials who have had like maybe one really good race or a couple close to really good races and are like right on the bubble of making that jump. You know, I've got like Chris Myers. He, you know, had a great Bandera last year. He races a lot. Just like in that 50K to 100K type range, and consistently is very good. Recently moved to Boulder, you know, it's in what appears to be like a pretty strategic, you know, training environment change. So this will be the first race that he does, I think, since having like moved full time to Boulder. Mackay Clemens, he's been on the scene for a while, and I think is like Coconino Cowboy adjacent, like he's rolled with the crew from time to time. Like, I don't know, kind of like how people like throw like Tupac as like a Bay Area type rapper because he did roll with them for a little bit. Anyways, he just crushed the San Diego 100 last year, which, you know, was like probably a heavy hitter type performance, but then it's like do that with other people around you now.
Yeah.
Couple other names, you know, like Rod Farvard, Adam Mary, Ryan Miller. Do we know if Rajpal Panu is racing?
He's not. He's focusing on the 100-mile jackpot race, I think.
Okay, because I saw that he was signed up for both, but a lot of his Strava seemed very narrowed in on jackpot 100.
So I tried to get him for an interview, and he said he's focusing on the 100-mile.
Okay, we'll cross him off the list. Canyon Woodward.
Sweet Canyon.
Yeah, I was going to say Finn's favorite runner. Canyon's had some, like he was third at Bandera last year, which was kind of the eye-opener race for him, but he's had some solid UTMBs.
Solid.
Like he was like 27th male last year at UTMB. And I think the year before that, he was in the 40s, which, like, if you're in the 40s at UTMB, that's a good race. So I'm curious to see and like, again, his trainings look good. And then, another person who I feel like has like been really knocking on the door and is like, we've said this so many times, they're like one race away from really busting it out, is Matt Seidel.
Yeah.
Another pretty prolific racer, does a lot of cool running over in the Bay Area, but was 10th at Black Canyon last year and recently went for the trials qualifier at CIM and missed it, but not by too much, right?
No, not by too much. I just feel like Matt is one of those runners who just has all the potential in the world. And like, we're just waiting for him to have that one race that just showcases it all. And I
wouldn't be surprised if, like, once he has that race he'll be able to do it every time.
Yes, exactly.
And then the last one I've got, well, the last two, Dan Green, who was 12th at Black Canyon last year, but then 4th at Javelina. And I feel like that was a big jump for him.
Huge jump. So, and he looked like he was going for it and looked consistently good all day long. And I think it wasn't that he really like slowed down that much. It's just everybody attacked that last like 10 miles a little bit more than he was able to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Noah Dussault, who was 5th at the race last year, was all like merging into that heavy hitter type category. So I'm really curious to see from this list, like, who makes that jump. And then the last category I had was like, I guess actually I wrote it as like dark horses or dudes with the fitness to be in the top 10. But now that I'm looking at the names, they're actually just really fast people who I guess then have the potential to be in the top 10. But an exciting name on the list is Hans Troyer, who just smashed Bandera last month. He ran 7:45, and that was pretty solo. Who knows how much time he takes off if that was still a golden ticket race. But he's coming back to Black Canyon. The biggest question mark there that we were talking about is like, is this too soon? I mean, I don't think we've ever seen someone win Bandera and then come and just run Black Canyon. No one's ever needed to, but we've seen a ton of people try the Black Canyon or the Bandera Black Canyon double, and it's hard. It's a short turnaround. So curious to see Hans Troyer. And then Nate Jukes, who trains a lot with Hayden Hawks. He's like, Hayden, in your pre-race interview, Finn, Hayden said, like, look out for Nate. Nate's a beast. Nate is a 1350 5K guy. Like, he was teammates with Hayden and Cam Levins at Southern Utah University. And like, Nate ran 1350 for the 5K and 2840 for 10K, and is just now realizing that he actually loves trail running. So as we've historically seen, when you're that good and you learn that you love trail running, oftentimes you have success at trail running. So, and he's person,
like 4 or 5 kids, I think.
Yeah, his Strava, like, bio says 5.5 kids.
Okay. Wow.
So I don't know what the 0.5 means. Maybe like a baby.
Yeah, on the way, maybe.
Yeah. So 5.5 kids. And then the other speedster that, I'm sure we're all very curious about is Andrew Bumbelow, formerly of the Oregon Track Club and Bowerman Track Club. And, he missed making the Olympic team in the 5K in 2012 by one spot. He eats 1350 5Ks for breakfast. His PR is 1312, which, like, now we're getting into world-class type territory. I mean, I think towards the end of his track career, he dabbled in the marathon, and in 2019 ran 2:10 at Chicago, which the only person to have started Black Canyon that's run faster than that, which it's amazing that there's actually been someone to run faster than that, was Reed Coolset, who has run a faster marathon. But word on the street is Bumby's pretty fit, and he did do a little 20-mile tune-up race in Bend last winter, and where's that note? It's on one of my 6 pages.
Control F.
I know where he beat. I think it was Noah Dussault.
It was. You said that to me, at least.
Yeah, is that right? Okay. Yeah. By like 5 minutes there. I mean, I know that's only a 20-mile race, but if Bumby can handle the downhill of the first half, I mean, he's gonna be dangerous for sure. Last speedster is Craig Hunt, who he ran the Carbon X project, like the 100K, but I don't know if he's done like a trail 100K.
He was in Black Canyon a couple years ago. Remember, he was leading the race through mile 50.
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. I have a bullet that says DNF Black Canyon 100K 2021.
The last guy to hang with Jim Walmsley during his 100K world record attempt.
Oh, was he the last one?
He was the last
of the group.
standing.
Oh, okay. And like he won way too cool last year. He has a 2:15 marathon PR. So like, again, speedy, but I don't think that's going to be the only thing that helps win the race. It helps to have that, but I have a feeling that those who have a little bit more like elite trail racing experience are going to be the ones to emerge. What do y'all think? Any names that I missed?
Craig Hunt thought here, because I actually think he had a really great early 2023 where he was like lining up 50K after 50K trail marathon almost every other weekend and performing extremely well at them. And then, just thinking back to his Black Canyon 20, maybe 21 or whatever the year that was, I think he was leading through 50 miles and then left the aid station still in the lead. But then we saw him walking back like soon after. And that's when like that race broke apart, when that was like Tyler and Sensman. So I do feel like he has really significant course knowledge here. And the fact that he was able to do that off of very little trail experience then, I think speaks a lot to what he can do now. But I wasn't necessarily thinking about Craig Hunt in my top 5, but now I might have just convinced myself.
I know that I had those exact same thoughts go through my head now. As you're like, now that I think about it, I'm like, well, that's not how I wrote my top 5.
You did forget, but he's also he's not in like the bulky list on Ultrasign Up. You got to scroll down to the people without Ultrasign Up results. Pekin Yu from, I believe, China. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's won the Hong Kong 100K in 2020. Also got second place very recently at the Hong Kong 100K as well. I believe this is his first time racing in the United States. So curious to see how the recovery after Hong Kong went. But then B, also how training on running on this terrain will feel for him. Yeah.
I guess one of the nice things about, well, actually, no, he just raced in Hong Kong. Where does he train? Where does he live?
Good question. Not positive.
Okay. I was just assuming Hong Kong, but that's probably not the case. I actually didn't name my current heavy hitters list. I realized I just omitted like 5 massive names.
Keep them omitted.
Well, I did mention like current heavy hitters like Hayden Hawks. Even though he didn't race for most of 2023, I still put him in that current heavy hitter list. Johnny Ray, course record at Javelina in October, 4th at CCC. That's one of the nastiest doubles of all time. It's just that CCC Javelina stack. 14th at Western States, and clearly there's a lot of motivation to get back, because I feel like if you look at Johnny Ray's like last 2 years of racing, Western States have been the only misses.
Yeah.
And when you're breaking, when you're running 4th at CCC, breaking the course record at Javelina, like you absolutely deserve to be in the like podium talk for Western States. So I understand, like he has a spot in Western States already, but I totally understand just lining up and getting this kind of like a dress rehearsal for this level of competition before Western States. Another opportunity to practice some like cluster runs or similar sort of things. He did do some like pretty long race simulation runs where it was like, 30 or 40 miles at 7:30, 100K pace, and was like, oh yeah, that felt pretty good.
Brett, we should get, because his coach is Adam St. Pierre, we should get his coach on the show before Western States to talk about how he trained John for Western, if John gets into Western. Or sorry, he's in Western, so we'll talk about
He's already in Western.
He's already in. He's already in.
Yeah,
Just
so
some of
he's
the-
got nothing to lose also with this race, which
Mhm.
that can go both ways. It's like extremely scary because it's like, what will he do? But then also from like a mental standpoint, if like something's feeling off, you might be thinking like, why risk it? So
True.
I'm not sure how I feel like he's going to go for it, but we'll see.
Yeah, you do get to no pressure go for it. Which there's 3 people, in this heavy hitters list that get to do that. And the other one is Cole Watson, who is I guess he's the highest returner from last year. Right? Yeah, getting 4th. First at the Canyons 100K and then 9th at Western States. So he already has his in at Western States. And, we're just coming back to Black Canyon to race and, compete. And then the other person's Ryan Montgomery, who had an amazing javelina this past October as well, and was 7th at Western States last year. So again, we're just racing. The last heavy hitter that I have that is trying to gain entry into Western States is Eric LaPuma.
Puma.
Who, the Puma. I believe that's what it translates to. When you're top 10 at the last 2 world championships, you've got to have a little bit of clutch factor in you. So, probably looking to redeem himself from a DNF in 2022. He's got a smart coach. He's coached by Corinne Malcolm.
I do think just from observing Eric's training on Strava, he has to win the most miserable training award.
Yeah.
His winter seemed pretty heinous. So I feel like whatever weather gets thrown at Black Canyon, Eric is ready for it. He is also, you guys can fact check me on this because I'm just probably pulling this out of my ass, but he's the only person in the field who has been on both a Rhodes Worlds team and Mountain Trail team. So he ran on the USA 100K Rhodes team like 2 years ago, and then also has been on 2 Mountain Trail teams now.
Is there any chance, and I don't know this, but did Craig Hunt do that as well? Because I know that he got second at Formidable.
Probably.
Okay. I'm not sure.
I think you're probably right. I'm pretty sure he was on the Rhodes 50K team and then the short course.
Still rare air. It's still awesome.
Eric is the highest performing person who has done both.
The only thing I worry about with Eric, and this was impressed upon me in the Hayden conversation, is how important, as the sport professionalizes, specificity becomes in your training. And Hayden making all these efforts to get down to St. George from Cedar City, because St. George is it replicates the Black Canyon course well. A lot of people that do well at this race, it's because they have home field advantage or they do their training camps down here. Like you said, wins the award for worst training location, is probably finding it very difficult to mimic what he needs to do from a course specificity. I just worry about that because he has all the talent in the world. He's clutch. He's amazing. He's world class, but his environment.
I do think he's just been extremely versatile though. I think that'll be helpful. And it's, I don't know. I feel like he can do it all, but I understand, that concern as well. I will say back to your St. George perspective there. I did a training run recently in St. George, and it was supposed to be a group run with Caleb and Hayden Hawks and Nate Jukes, right? And I was told it was be a easy group run pace. And guys, I kid you not, within 45 seconds of starting this run, this was not easy group run pace. And I got dropped so hard. It was about probably 2 minutes in. I was like, okay, you guys can go. But I think they are both extremely fit and going to be in a good place for this race. But the St. George terrain, the whole time I was doing this run, I was like, this is perfect Black Canyon training. It's identical. So I do think that specificity is helpful. However, I think Eric LaPuma will fare well on it regardless.
I'll add a couple notes before we get into picks. The first thing, I don't know how this started, but both Dan Green and Mekhi Clemens have two of the largest social media fan bases I've ever encountered. Our DMs got flooded today with "put some respect on Mekhi Clemens' name" posts, and then Dan Green is super fit posts, watch out. So these
nice.
people, for whatever reason, have amassed significant followings on social. They wanted to let Singletrack know that they're fit and ready to go. So there's that. Second thing, we got some interesting fan mail. The first one was, quote, conspiracy. Eric Sensman's retirement was a ruse. He will enter last minute and get a golden ticket to Western States.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be amazing. And also, like, the only race where that can happen is Black Canyon, because Eric Sensman's everything he touches turns to gold at Black Canyon 100K. He's
Mr. Black Canyon.
Yeah, he is Mr. Black Canyon.
Another one was, quote, 2 words, Hans Troyer. So I mentioned him earlier. But just a couple comments from me. I did see earlier this year on social, Ryan Montgomery, in public said, I want to take a big step forward this year. Like, I've had a lot of success in the sport the last year or two. 2024 is where I take an even bigger leap in the sport in terms of stature and, how I kind of size up among the best. This is a great opportunity. I think he's been ascendant. He's an extremely hard worker, and he proved to me last year that not only can he perform well, but he can resurrect when the going gets tough. Like Brett, I still can't get that image out of my mind from Michigan Bluff last year when I thought he was going to DNF, and he just still came back. So Ryan is impressive, and I'm very excited to see what he does. The second thing I'll say is, and I'm not the right person to do it. I don't have the credibility, but I believe that John Ray is a superstar, and somebody with credibility has to go and anoint him a superstar, because I think he has proved that he is. And I worry that he is forever going to be an unanointed superstar in our sport. And he's just going to kind of be on start lines, and people are going to be like, yeah, he's like pretty solid. No, he's a superstar.
What does this mean? Like someone has to knight him?
I don't know. I feel like there's always been a moment in the sport where
why can't it be you?
Sorry?
Why can't it be you? You can be the one to anoint him.
I'm just a fan. I'm just a guy. Like, we need like a pro. We need we need a pro to do it.
Dude, if I'm John Ray and I'm listening to this, I'm like, dude, I don't want Finn to be applying any anointment to me anywhere.
That's why I shouldn't do it.
I don't even know what that means.
But I think John's a stud, and yeah. So, should we go to picks?
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, Brett, go ahead.
Okay. How many did I write down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I wrote 7.
Hi.
Because I wrote like a few, and then I was just like, okay, I'm going to write all the names that I think can be in the top 5, and then I'll keep shuffling them around.
That's nice. Okay.
And then I just didn't delete a few. But anyways, the winner, to go along with like Finn's jingle, the winner of the 2024 Black Canyon 100K will be Cole Watson.
Right.
And again, unbiased coin flip, but also he had a garbage middle 10 miles from just after Black Canyon City to before Table Mesa. He was throwing up, jogging. The chase pack caught up to him. He was telling me later, he was like, dude, Laney saved my race. Laney caught up to me and was like, no, you got to start running with me. And like, he just kind of coached him back into it. And then all of a sudden Cole came back to life, and he ran one of the fastest, like, last splits from Table Mesa to the finish. Still broke 8 hours. Like, 8 hours was sub-8 was like a mythical time. Only Sage Canaday had really ever done that.
And on the 38th mile, he rose again.
Exactly. So it's like, for Cole to have such a long stretch of like feeling bad and still run under 8 hours, and then to like learn from that and flip it around at canyons, I think there's going to be a lot of things in Cole's head about like, okay, this is what I can do right because I did it last year. This is what I can fix. And I think he's learned a lot about just believing in his abilities to close a race hard, because he had always been like, the bridesmaid of Goody and Golden tickets, and like he would always make his move way too early because he wasn't patient enough. But I think he's finally learning some of that patience, and that's going to be one of those things where, though, like we said earlier, the winner of the race is just getting decided later and later, and you got to be patient. You can't think you're going to draw people at mile 30 or even 35. So Cole Watson with the win.
Nice.
And this is going to be close. This is like a blanket finish. Like we might literally be kicking it in the last mile. I've got Johnny Ray in second, which is interesting because both of them are in Western states. No golden tickets have been handed out yet. Rounding out the podium, I've got Hayden Hawks, which, there's people right now like screaming at trees and stuff as they're running, listening to this, being like, Brett, why the hell do you not have Hayden winning? And that's just because this is his first race back coming off surgery. Like, it's just hard, as much as you want to do that. Like, it's just hard to get the body to cooperate. I think it's going to cooperate good enough to get a golden ticket, but winning the race, I'm not sure. Fourth place, Eric LaPuma. The Puma is going to defy the odds of course specificity because he's good at running. My computer went to sleep. And then rounding out the top 5, I've got Emkay Clemens in 5th, and then David Daney close 6th.
I like him.
David Daney in 6th, nice.
Yeah, I mean, he got what did he get, 7th last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a tough runner too.
He's tough. His training's been pretty good, and like he also had a 5-mile section that was trash where he messed up his calories, and he had like 0 calories from like miles 45 to 50 and just bonked so bad, and then came back to life and closed super hard. So it's like, okay, well, clearly you can fix that from 1 year to the next. So that's got to be a couple minutes right there, and I think in this race, a couple minutes will mean multiple places.
Wait, does that mean you don't have John Ray in your top 5?
No, I had him in 2nd.
Oh, I wasn't listening. Tuned out. I don't have John Ray in my top 5, so now I'm just feeling all problematic over here.
Oh, so yay, we finally disagreeing on something. All right. I got to hear Leah's picks then.
What you got, Leah? What you got?
Okay, I'm going to start from, I did 6. And yeah, somehow John Ray still didn't make mine, so maybe I'll regret my decisions. Number 6, Dan Green. I liked how he ran Javelina. I feel like he really put himself out there and had a lot of confidence. So we'll see how that plays out at Black Canyon if he runs similarly. And I think Caleb Bowen's been, messaging you, Finn, I don't know, on some social media platforms. I know he trains with him and says he's even fitter coming into Black Canyon than he was Javelina. So I think that should be a recipe for success. I've got Eric LaPuma in 5th. We didn't talk much about Rod. I have Rod in 4th. And okay. I feel like this is an unpopular opinion because I feel like both of you guys don't really have him in your top 5. I was looking at Hayden Hawks training today when I was going through our people, and I was like, dang, he's been putting in like these 20-hour weeks with biking and running, and he seems very confident. I was like, he's got to be putting in some of the most volume of anybody. And then I looked at Rod on Strava on my browser, which gives you like cumulative training of all mediums. And Rod's been doing like 24 hours a week of training between skiing, running, biking. And I feel like, I've been following Rod for a while. I feel like this is his most like specific training he's ever done, and like almost just like focused training he's ever done. And I want to remind our listeners that like he is extremely fast. And at Canyon's 50K this year, he was coming back from injury and was right behind Jeshuron and Hayden in this 50K before getting lost at mile 27.
Yeah.
So he was in the mix for a podium spot with 2 of the guys that we consider probably are some of the fastest 50K runners in the States. So I think that combo of Rod's training, his focus, his desire to get back to Western States, I think we'll see him very much in the mix, and I have him in 4th.
It's a good pick.
He took 5th in 2019. It was a different era, but he took 5th. It was impressive.
Yeah, he can put it together too. And I love how he races, just like super focused. And I feel like he's been really focusing on putting all the little pieces together the last year with like nutrition, hydration, electrolytes, things like that. So I think we'll see a great race out of him.
He's just got to not get rhabdo.
That too. He'll be good.
Yeah.
I've got
Drink your fluids.
And my only comments that I have written here is the way he ran last year was so gutsy. I loved it. So I want to see Cole do that again, because I just feel like, yeah, Brett, like you mentioned, like he was kind of dead for a little bit of a second there. And I saw him when I was on the live stream when he came into, I think it was Black Canyon City.
He looked horrible there.
Horrible. Yeah. And he looked really hot and took some time to cool down. And I was like, his day is over. But if you go back and watch the finishing drone shots of Cole, it was wild. He was sprinting so fast. So I think he can turn it around, even if he is having a rough day out there. He took it out hot last year and like it pretty much stuck. So I think he'll do that again. Second place, I feel like the people are saying it, so I got to listen. I'm going with Emkay Clemens. He's got his JFK was impressive too. I don't know if you guys hit on that. He ran a 5.2 there. I think his San Diego didn't get the attention it really deserved. I'm assuming, I know that's probably a slightly different course than I think when Carl Meltzer ran the course record there. So I think that would stand probably as a course record these days. I think he's going to do something special. And I feel like he's kind of this like underdog of sorts coming into the race. So hopefully I can see that represented in my finishing picks. And then I got Hayden Hawks. I just feel like he's seeming very confident. His training's been great. He dropped me so hard. So I feel like he's going to do really well. I feel like normally, Brett, I'd be feeling like similarly to your picks, but I don't know. There's something about his training, his focus, and his confidence coming into this that I feel like he is kind of hard to bet against for this one.
I'm glad that we finally have some different picks. Like that's a good thing. Yeah. That's a good thing.
Good for the sport.
And it's a good thing as long as I'm right.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Also, one thing about Emkay that I forgot to say, he is in for the Angeles Crest 100 mile this year.
Ooh, I saw that. Okay. Yeah.
Which like that's kind of cool.
I guess one thing that is kind of elusive to me is his training looks great and everything. He hasn't posted anything yet this week. So he's healthy.
Interesting.
Maybe he just hasn't synced. He's off the grid. He hasn't synced his watch.
Yeah, true. It's Thursday though. Yeah. Maybe he's just going dark.
Yeah.
I got to set some ambiance for my picks. I got to set the scene here. So I believe that, again, maybe the most bold pick I have for this episode is that the entire men's top 10 is going under 8 hours. Weather dependent, like assuming we're not seeing like hurricane-like conditions out there, I've got the whole entire top 10 going under 8 hours. I believe that it's also going to be an extremely tight race. I think we're going to see some amazing drone shots of final mile chases, people grappling for the second spot, third spot, the win, etc. I think it's going to be theatrical. And I also believe that people are getting pushed limit. We're going to see people blowing chunks at the finish line. It's going to be
all over the studio.
All over Brett.
I think it's going to be like, it's just going to be glorious. With all of that said,
throw up ASMR.
Glorious.
But you're going to see I'm talking like Jeff Browning versus Kyle Pietari chase downs on the track, Brittany Peterson versus Claire, like that kind of theatrics. It's going to be cool. That's my prediction. I'm going to wish that into existence. I got Cole Watson taking the win. I think Cole Watson is prime time. Cole Watson is prime time in the same way that I want to see the elevation of John Ray. I want to see the continued elevation of Cole Watson. One of the most talented, the second most pure talented runner in this race besides Andrew Bumbelow. Would you agree, Brett?
I mean, it's like like Hayden, Nate Jukes, Cole Watson, Bumbelow.
Yeah.
Like they all got speedy times.
Cole's beast.
Is Cole sponsored right now?
Cole's a free agent right now.
Nice. That's cool.
So I don't know, maybe some of that Anthony Costales unsponsored magical dust will roll off onto Cole a little bit.
Is he going to wear like a Rogue Valley Rancheros shirt?
I wish those existed. I don't know what he's going to wear. Hopefully something awesome.
Chosen tarmac.
I've got Hayden Hawks in second. I've got John Ray in third, Emkay Clemens 4, Ryan Montgomery 5, and I've got Eric LaPuma 6. So we are going to see the ticket go all the way down to the 6th spot where Eric LaPuma is. And yeah, Hayden Hawks, Emkay Clemens, and Puma are all heading to Western States. Cole's already in, John's already in, Ryan's already in. I'm going to add one more person because you mentioned Rod earlier. That was an awesome mention. I've got Joey DeFeo in 7th. It means nothing in terms of golden tickets, but Joey DeFeo, I think, has a coming out party of high performance here at Black Canyon. He's had some really solid training in flag, knows the course well, NAU guy, loves the trails, loves the game, and he's kind of my out of left field pick.
Is he like next generation cowboy?
Maybe. I think he's also cowboy adjacent. I think him and Emkay are kind of like cowboy adjacent. I think, Joey paced Sensman at Cocodona 250, which is kind of cool. Like he's in.
Okay.
He's in
yeah. So he's in the next gen cowboy.
Next gen cowboy. Yeah.
Are we on course record watch for the men's race?
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you think it'll happen?
Weather dependent, I think. I think Anthony and Tom pushed each other to a great time last year. I think the women's course record definitely has a little time to move down. Like normally when I look at course records, I think like men and women should be like roughly a minute per mile apart from each other. I think right now the men and women's for this race is like maybe 75 minutes apart from each other or something. I think the men's can go down a little bit, but probably not by much this year, if any.
Yeah, I can see sub 740.
Yeah.
But prior to Anthony, the course record was 752 by Sage Canada in 2016. So it had been like 7 years before someone ran faster than. Then Anthony just absolutely squashed it and beat the eventual Western States champion. So I think if you're in that within shouting distance of that time, you're immediately looking, I got to be winning Western States.
Well, guys, this has been an awesome episode. For those that are listening, those that are watching, let us know what you think. Give us your picks, give us your comments, give us your questions. Hit us up on social at Run Singletrack. I'll post Brett and Leah's social handles in the show notes as well. And we're all stoked about Black Canyon. Brett, any final thoughts from you before we go?
Yeah, I mean, if you have any hot takes, comments, questions, concerns, just send them to the Run Singletrack Instagram page instead of mine or Leah's.
Yeah, just send all the criticisms Finn's way.
Yeah.
What you got, Leah? Any final words?
Oh, not really. I just think this is going to be a really exciting year. I think if you're running this race, reach out to us. Tell us what you'll be wearing so we can give you the appropriate shout out on the live stream. Really hard to identify faces sprinting by us extremely fast out there. I know there's a lot of names we did not mention today. I think it just speaks to the depth of this race this year. And there's 30 women, there's 30 plus men who are in the battle for these golden tickets and these podium spots. So yeah, just know there's a lot of you guys out there, and I'm sure it's going to be fire on race day.
I'm excited to see you guys in a couple weeks.